Thank you. And we thank Muwatin. I apologize, but sound is not clear for me. I have two papers. The first is historical background on the current. I will present history in a critical manner to understand the reality. Then I will speak about the reality that we must critique in a philosophical manner. First theme addresses what we live today. I believe that there are three issues that interact. The first is the collapse of the capitalist system the way we know it. It's this form of capitalism that could not promise its societies with anything. The welfare state cannot promise us that it is capable to resolve any dilemmas. The other issue is the collapse of the liberal values resulting from capitalism. The liberal values, the current liberal values, do not have any claim through which it can say to its people that there is a future or another promise. The third issue is the collapse of the international system, what we can call the US-led global leadership. Those three aspects happened only twice historically. The first happened in the 7th century upon the collapse of slavery system and the emergence of the feudal system and the collapse of the Roman Empire and the emergence of the collapse of values that are based on the slavery system. That happened in the 7th century. And there the Islamic experience emerged as a different promise. The second turning point happened in the 14th century with the Western modernism, in which it promised that there is a new history. It is known that there was an industrial revolution and the production of liberal values. So this resulted in the leadership of the West to the world. The situation didn't happen in the Middle East since the 7th century. Now the civilization reinterpreted itself within the boundaries of the Middle East. This East, or the Middle East, is forced one way or another to produce a civilization or to reproduce itself. It has to do it. That's why we see what's happening in Syria or in Gaza or Iraq or other countries of the Middle East. History will repeat itself in the Middle East. However, the problem here is what the Middle East suffers from. As you know, the Middle East is currently going through a serious problem at the ideological level. There are several discourses that no more can promise their country, their people of anything. The religious discourse is no more capable of to attract us or to promise or to produce for us the necessary tools to say that the religious project is the best. So the religious discourse is bankrupt. On the other hand, the pan-Arab or the national discourse has collapsed. The existence of one central identity that is capable of building a real society or real nation state, or to produce a real citizen, or to produce a civil society, is no more possible. Hence, the national state, the nation state, as in accordance with the liberal system, is no more capable of revitalizing itself. Those discourses, whether the religious or the national or the traditional leftist discourse, are bankrupt. We can say that the Middle East is somehow searching for reshaping itself with a new thought. What is this new thought? The Middle East is forced, is obliged, has no other option but to reproduce itself, to be able to say to the coming human civilization that we exist and I'm capable of being a real component of this new global order that is being shaped. The Middle East has become the gateway of the world. What are the reasons or the dilemmas or obstacles that obstruct the Middle East? I believe that there are 6 reasons. I call them the 6 curses that impede the transformation. First is the identity. This is one of the productions of liberalism. The people in the Middle East, throughout their history, have never dealt with other through identity, but through joint enmity. However, what happened towards the end of the 18th century was that an identity discourse was produced in the Middle East, and the people started to deal with each other based on identity rather than on peace and friendship. We need to critique this discourse. The other is ideology. The major ideology is that no more can promise us of those claims. The ideology in the traditional sense has gone, and we need to remove and we need to have more flexible tools to adapt to the future. Therefore, the major ideologies are no more possible or no more feasible. The third curse is the state. I believe that the societies of the Middle East, and this is sarcastic, has never lived within the system of a state, according to modern states. We've always been with outside the frame of a state, and the reason is that the nation states that collapsed failed to promise their people or to provide for their people what the West provided. The nation state is an importation by the East from the West without having the necessary tools. The project of the nation state, is it suitable for us or not? You imported it, although the Middle East does not, the nation state does not suit the Middle East. We are replete with different identities. Therefore, the Middle East will always have a political and social dilemma. There's a need to dismantle the notion of the state, and we need to organize ourselves in a more emancipatory manner. The other reason is that we have a historical dilemma because we only use from our present the past. We have a historical discourse, and our life is based on history. It's better for us to give up this historical discourse. once the German people was accused of being patients of history. We need, we are dealing with others through the lens of history or historical memory. And the reason is that I apologize, but the sound is not clear. The nation is, there's a need to produce a real political friendship. We must produce or reproduce the concept of friendship in a new form that will provide us space, defining the other not as a guest or a refugee, but as a partner on this land that can take us and other. The last curse is politics and politicians. I believe that politics, in the traditional sense, although we are living the last days of politics in the traditional sense, we need to rephrase the concept of politics. Politics uh, can no more provide us with the necessary tools to analyze and to phrase ourselves in an ethical manner. Politics, as defined by Plato and Aristotle, is based on managing the society. In this sense, uh, politics must be restored and reactivated. We need to know that the politics address our aims at reproducing a new system based on common friendship. That's why I believe that we have six curses or six reasons for the Middle East that we need to dismantle those reasons. The state identity, ideology, enmity, history, and politics. When we do that, after that, we can promise our people to produce other spaces of democracy and freedom. Without dismantling those curses and those causes, I believe that we will reproduce the destruction and killing, and it will be part of the culture of the Middle East. I repeat, those curses are not produced by the people of the Middle East, but are produced by capitalist modernity that has imposed on the that was imposed on the people of the Middle East. People of the Middle East never suffered from the problem of identity and never perceived the other as the enemy and never exercised politics except with an ethical lens. However, the changes of the 14th and 15th centuries and the Western colonialism of the East produce the situation that is not like does not resemble us. I believe that we are going through a real historical period and we are obliged to dismantle those values and reproduce those definitions. The important thing now is that we have to go through this critique and this discussion without looking at the other as an enemy or a competitor. We are living at a critical moment and we need to realize that this transition of human civilization uh, comes from the Middle East, and the Middle East is bound to provide a solution that is useful for it and for the whole world. When I say that civilization is stabilized in the Middle East, it's because even the global order is I apologize, but the sound is not clear. If we succeed in dismantling those concepts such as the state and identity, in this case, we can promise our children with a rebirth, and we promise our societies with a real democracy based on diversity. But if we do not do so, Gaza will be replicated and Syria will become a model in terms of the concepts of killing and sectarian enmities. And this will be replicated. And the Middle East is going through a serious crisis in terms of recreating its own identity. Since the 7th century, the Middle East did not produce its own concepts. It has always been affected by another central culture, and which the Middle East itself did not produce. Therefore, the Middle East is forced to reshape and reproduce itself. Thank you very much.